Good evening, everybody. I am DJ Man. I'm your course instructor for Intro to Coding Live, and we're going to go through um, the setup process to be able to get ready to be able to use um, GitHub code spaces, and the curriculum links that we'll be using throughout these 3 weeks. So the first thing is, if you don't already have, um, you need to have a GitHub account. That's at github.com. We'll put that inside the chat here. If you were here for the day zero, we've already gone through this process, but we're just covering this just in case, just for anybody who may not have been here. So signing up for GitHub is pretty easy. It's just like signing up for just about any other like Facebook, or emails or whatnot. You have two different two different options for signing up. They'll effectively bring the same window. And just like usual, it'll be looking for your email. You'll create a password. It'll give you a username, which is not your email address. It will check to make sure the username is unique once you at this point of the page. So you can go through and you don't have to wait until you click create account to get that feedback. It should give you a email confirmation, which you'll have to go into whatever email you use to register with. Keep in mind, some of the email services they do tend to run a little bit slow. Double check your junk mail, that sort of thing. Just the normal um, processes of signing up. Is any if While we're waiting for people to get their GitHub signed up, I'm going to paste the curriculum repo link inside the Zoom chat. So if you already have your GitHub account, paste it into Slack. Is that what you're talking about, Diego? Or are you looking for the Slack link?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I muted myself. No,
No
I
worries.
I need the Slack link. Correct. I'm in Slack, but I don't know how to invite you or stuff like that.
You're in Slack, but are you in the Code Platoon Slack?
No, no. Oh, I thought being in your Slack. No, I'm in an account.
You sign into Slack with your account. Are you talking about Slack or GitHub? I want to make sure we're
I
talking
got
about the right thing.
I got an account on GitHub already. I'm done. I'm good with that. The Slack thing that you said that to join the Slack community, I'm in an account obviously, and I don't know how to get the community because I'm not too into social
Okay,
media.
so with when you have Slack, this is the it works. This will look about the same inside the web UI versus the desktop. I've got the desktop
Yeah, me too.
version. So you should see if you're in the Code Platoon community, you should see the little Code Platoon with a
Okay,
little
I'm
flag
not
and
in the
that sort of thing.
community. How do I get in the community? I'm not in the community.
Okay, I just pasted a link into the Zoom chat,
Ah, there you go.
so that
Nice.
might be able to help you. And the link for the Code Platoon curriculum, I've pasted it into the Zoom chat here, but it is also, I'm going to bring up Slack again in the intro to coding channel. There
Right.
is a bookmarks link right here, and you'll be able to get these links there too. This is for FYI once you get your Slack, and for everybody who's already got the Slack.
Okay. Yeah, it's asking me to make an account. I already have one.
Um,
That's all right.
Try to set it. There should be a join. It actually, you know what? See if you can try this add workspace, see if that'll work. I don't remember. I've been on
Either
a
way.
lot of mine for a while. Um,
Well, let's continue the class. I'll figure it out. There's more important other stuff.
okay, yeah. And yeah, well, if you're still having issues, we can hang back a couple after class is done and we can take a look at it. Okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. So is everybody if everybody's already signed up for Slack or for sorry, for GitHub, when you click the GitHub link, it'll be the GitHub Code Platoon curriculum Intro to Coding Live. It'll look just like this. And it'll take you to this page. Now, again, if you were in the day zero, you just be patient. We're going to go through the same stuff we've done on the day zero. What we're looking for, and mine is in dark mode. If yours is in light mode, don't worry about that. That's just cosmetics. But what we're looking for is this green button, and it's green in both dark mode and light mode that says use this template. When we click that, William, you cannot see my screen. What do you, can you come off mute and let me know what you see? Because it looks like it's all streaming, right?
No, it's just basically I see a green border with nothing in it.
A green border?
Yeah, I'm using Firefox. Is that going to be an issue? Do I need to
Well,
switch?
you should be looking at inside your Zoom client.
I am. Well, I'm using the browser. Should I download Zoom?
I'm not exactly sure how well Firefox works with Zoom. I've always run it from the desktop client.
Well, let me go get a desktop client and reconnect them. That's
Okay,
probably
were you
good.
here for day zero or no?
I was, but I didn't know you had to have desktop client. I was just doing it in the browser. But so okay. Well, let me go ahead and take.
Okay, I'll walk through this with everybody and then we can try to catch you up. There is a recorded video of this same process here.
Okay. Then I'll just hang out and still could download the client, and then I'll catch up.
Okay, so on the GitHub page, we're going to click the use this template button, and then we want this second option, the open in a code space. Please do not click create new repository. And again, only do this if you were not here for the day zero when we set this stuff up. So once you create open in a code space, it will load up this environment. For those of you who were here and have already set up your code spaces, while this is loading for those who haven't, if you've already set up your code spaces from day zero, what we need to go to the hamburger menu right next to the Octocat. And then we will go down to this link right here, the code spaces link.
What?
And this is only if you were here for day zero or you've watched the video and already set up your code spaces. And when you click code spaces, you'll have your code space here, and you'll have a last used probably 3 days ago or whatnot, and then there will be the 3 dot ellipsis that is right here, and you will want to open your code space in a browser. That is this one right. Alana, okay, you're logged into GitHub. Um, I'm going to, there is the curriculum. There's the curriculum repository. This is in the Slack bookmarks in the Intro to Coding channel as well. You can bookmark the tab if you need to, or because this will be the same link that we use every day of class. Does that help? Okay. And now again, this open in browser is only if you've already set up your code spaces. When for those who are setting up their code spaces now, you should be seeing this a lot of activity going on down in this bottom terminal window. You'll see it's going to be doing some commands here. These are setting up the environment for you. Um, Effectively, we're not going to have to download a code editor or anything. We're going to be doing all of that through the web interface here. Um, Slack might be the only thing that you download, or you can use the web client. That tends to work best with Chrome or Chrome-based browsers. Now, regardless of which method that you use to get into the code space, we're going to be looking for, when it's all done, you should see your username, a directory structure that says workspaces intro to coding live, main, and it should just kind of be hanging out there. Is there the port that it's talking about? If it pops that up, just close that. That should be just a FYI or an information window. You don't have to really worry about it. Everything's just going to work inside of your browser. What this effectively is this is a web version or a web interface to the Visual Studio Code. Are there any questions? And feel free to come off mute for questions and that stuff right now so we can get everybody on the same page. And William, are you working on trying to, do you have Chrome? William, if you have Chrome or like Microsoft Edge, that will work fine for being able to run Zoom with if trying to get the desktop clients becoming just a pain or whatnot for you, okay?
The fucking chat, bro. Ah,
All right. So is there anybody not at this intro to coding um, page? We want intro to coding. You're going to see the Explorer. Okay, Alana. Um, did you already set up code spaces or do you need me to walk you through setting that up again? Okay, no worries.
I wasn't a
what the
part of
fuck?
the day zero, so I would appreciate being walked through how to do that as well, please.
You were here or were not here? Sorry.
I was not.
Okay. So with the so I'm going to paste this. The link that I just clicked is this link here that I just pasted into the Zoom chat. This is the intro to coding live curriculum. And this is the page. Don't worry if it's in dark mode or light mode, that doesn't change any of the functionality. What we're looking for is this green use this template button. Everybody see that?
No. Yes.
Sorry, I'm kind of checking my other screens and whatnot. Okay. Is it so once we click this use this template button, we have this open in a code space. This is for everybody who was not there for day zero. I want you to click that open in a code space and that will open a new tab.
I don't see the use this template button. Mine just has the code button. Oh, never mind. Mine is just higher up on the screen. Sorry.
Yep, no worries. There are two green buttons, yeah.
And then you said to create a new repo.
No. Open in a
Okay.
code space. Create a new
Open in a code.
repository. Yeah, that will do all kinds of funky stuff that we don't want.
Okay, got
You
it.
could
Thank you.
easily just come back and open in a code space, but the setup for the other way is just a lot more than what we have time for.
Perfect. Okay, I got there. Thank you.
No worries. Is there anybody else that has any issues? When you click that open in a code space, you'll see the tab processing through and doing its stuff. Okay.
PJ,
Yes.
I have you know where it says problems down there in that string where it says terminal ports and all of that?
You're talking about inside the editor, right?
Yes, down
Okay.
there. Mine says unindent amount does not match previous indent pylance, line 3, column 3.
And you clicked open in code spaces?
Yeah.
We should have no Python errors. That sounds like it's is it is it still going
Yeah,
or
it's
did
still
it
sitting
stop?
there. It everything is stopped on my code space, but it just has that says problems in the a blue circle with a 1 in it, and then what you said about the ports. I looked in there and I'm good where I'm at, but I was just wondering if I was having a problem with that.
The setup should be fine. So the next piece we're gonna go into is basically gonna test that for us. So if everybody's here, we want to open up the lessons drop down on the Explorer on the left. And we're going to want to click the first lesson starts with day 0. That's another programming thing. Whenever you're counting, everything starts with 0, not 1. So we're on day 1. So we want to click the 1, Python data types and methods. Okay. Get my lines off here. So what you should see when this is loaded up, and please make sure that we're in the editor, because if we're looking at if your screen looks like what I'm sharing right now, then you're in the wrong spot. This is not the way that we go through this repo, okay? And then if you are here, we can walk through trying to make sure that you have the editor. So it's like this. Because one thing we need to do is we are looking for this select kernel. It should be on the upper right of the middle view pane inside the editor. Does anybody not see that? And then when we click the select kernel, it is going to open up a drop down up here. We're going to want to click the Python environments. And then when everybody's there, we'll click Python environment, and we want the second one. The one that says user/local/bin/Python. Don't worry if your version number isn't exactly like mine. It needs to be in this user local bin Python. If we try to use the other one, it's not going to work with what we're trying to do here. Once we click that, where it said select kernel, should now say Python and the version number. Is everybody able to see that? And if I move through that a little bit too fast, please let me know. I can step back. No worries, Alana. How far did you make it before you lost connection?
Okay, so I have Slack open and I have GitHub open. Where do I go on GitHub? Code Spaces?
You were not here for day 0, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So being that you lost the connection, I'm going to paste it in again. Do you see in the Zoom chat?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I
have.
want you to click that. Okay. So you've
Oh,
already been there, right? So
is
then
it the purple and white, or is that something else?
purple and white. Colors may not, or
No, that's I'm in Slack.
purple and white Slack. Yeah, Slack we could just put aside right now. Okay. Well, actually, here, if you have Slack up, I can show you where in Slack that is. You have the intro to coding channel, right?
Hang on, just a sec. Oh, I love this.
I apologize. I've got 3 screens and I'm used to bouncing all over the place. So please let me
I
know if you
have
don't see something.
okay. I have 2 laptops open right now, so one's working and one's slow.
All right. Is Slack on the same laptop that you're trying to do the course in?
No,
Okay, so don't worry about clicking it in there then.
I'm trying to get
Because
to. Okay, I'm
ha
in this plat. I'm getting into the code Platoon curriculum right now. Is what I'm trying to
okay,
do.
so
Let me
once
sign
this
in.
loads up, I don't even remember how to change my view on this.
Just gonna have to use my work computer. They're gonna have to deal with it. Okay. No
And
one
then
have an account.
did you do you already signed up for GitHub, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you should be able to just click that link. One way you can see is it should up on the upper right.
Hold on.
I haven't. Yep, no worries.
Oh my god. Where's my phone? Okay. My password is on my phone. There it is. Okay.
Once you're in the GitHub curriculum, it might actually give like the first letter of your username or something where I have an icon up here. I don't remember what it looks like when you don't have an icon, but it should give you some kind of indication that you're logged in. You should be able to click up there, see your username, see a bunch of options.
Okay. 1 sec. Come on, let's go. You can do it. I believe in you. I think I'm gonna have to buy a new computer.
How old is what kind of computer is it?
It's a Dell and Core i5 10th gen. I got it back in 2020.
How much RAM does it have?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You may need to just go through and clean it up. You may just need to get rid of temporary files and stuff like that, because that kind of stuff will slow you down.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you should be able to use this interface. You should be able to use a computer that's 20 years old.
Okay.
I know people don't say that's popular, but it's the truth. It's just a web browser.
All right. I'm in. I'm logged in. I'm good. Now, where do I go?
Okay, so you have not created code spaces yet, correct?
No.
Okay, so you're looking for, you are in the Intro to Coding live repo, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we want use this template button, should be a green button,
Got it.
and then you should see open in a code space.
Got it.
You click that, and then it will do the setup stuff. That will bring you to, it'll open up a tab, and it'll start doing all of the setup things. Now, this is not setting stuff up on your computer. This is setting stuff up on a virtual computer. So your
Perfect.
RAM does not impact this.
Okay.
But we do have to, your internet speed does. So you will have to just wait for it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then
Entry coding live.
it'll
Explore.
do, it will do a bunch of processing down in this terminal window. And what you're looking for, it'll look, it'll stop for a little bit, look like it's done, and then it'll start doing stuff with a command called pip and whatnot. And it might have like a little spinner or something like that. But when it's done, it will look like this. It'll have your username,
Oh, hold
your,
on. Okay.
it'll look like this when it's done. Okay. But being that you just launched into the tab, you're definitely not done yet right now. So you just have to kind of be patient with it. And that, yeah.
No problem.
Is there anybody else having issues with the code spaces? William, were you able to get in? Were you able to get your Zoom situation taken care of? If you're talking, you're muted.
I was able to download the client, and right now I've got intro to coding live, but there's nothing on the left side, left panel. It's got the terminal window, and it was trying to build it, but that's it.
Okay, so then you've gotten, if it was building it, then you are in the right spot.
Okay, it's actually populating now. I got the dev container exercises, graphics, lessons.
Okay, and your Zoom issues are taken care of as far as being able to see what's being streamed and everything?
Everything's good.
All right, good to go.
Okay, I'm muting now.
All right. And Alana, can you just send a message inside the chat when this stuff down here is done? Oh,
I believe it's done now.
okay. So what we're going to do is mine says Python 2. I just closed the side window. There's a little side bar that says like work with AI or something like that. You could just close that. You don't need that. But it should say where mine says Python 3.14.4, you should probably everyone who just got here should probably have something that says select kernel, correct?
Yes, I have that select kernel.
Yep. And what I want you to do is I want you to click that and you'll have this drop down menu. It'll look different than what I've got now. One of the options will say select Python environment, right? And I want you to click select Python environment, and then it will, what we're looking for. I didn't put that line across. Oh, come on. No, I want the user local bin Python. Okay. It should be 3.14.4, but don't worry if it has a different version number. It's the location that matters the most to us.
I'm sorry, where is this Python native data types and methods page that I open up?
Okay, that is over here on the lessons on the left side. If you hit that caret, that's a drop down. It'll open up in
Lessons.
there.
Got it. Lessons.
And then it's the second one there. One, Python types and Python data types, methods, etc.
Got it.
Now, each selecting this kernel is going to be something we're going to do for each one of these pages as we get to them. So each day we'll be double checking it. I might do a reminder on the first couple days of class, but after a while, but what you'll see that select, I believe somebody's probably on the phone or something. Could you please mute? If whenever it says select kernel over here, that means we need to select our kernel. What the kernel is it's a piece Jupyter Notebooks needs to process or to run the code that we've got going on here. And the stuff that the interface that we're using inside of Visual Studio Code is Jupyter Notebooks. You'll see the Jupyter variables, etc. But once we get this kernel selected, we should be able to go to one of these code blocks, and there's a play button here that once the kernel is selected, we should be able to press play and you should see the code execute. That's how you know if you've gotten this environment set up correctly. So that's probably, it's just not even a quarter down the page to be able to find the first code block. I'd like everybody just to try that out and make sure that's working for us before we start actually going into the curriculum content today. And let me know if you have any issues so we can catch that up.
I have an indentation error.
That's probably the second one. That one's, do the check just above that. There should be a block that says correct. Because if you do run this one, that is an indentation error. That's a deliberate error that's in there for a demonstration that we're going to go over in a few minutes. Python environment. So what you need, it should be 3.14.4, but it's more important to make sure that we're looking for the one that's in user, local, bin, Python. It'll be right next to the Python version number.
Okay, I'm in that one.
Okay. And then you should see Python 3.14.4, and you should be able to go down to the first code block, hit the play button, and see the code executed.
The first code block. Okay. Let's see here. I wish I had a bigger screen. Is it under Python syntax basics?
Yes, continue going under Python syntax basics. You'll see a subheading called examples, and then we're looking for the one that says correct on it.
Is this like far down at the bottom?
No, we're probably, if you see my scroll over on the right, it's right about there. So we're not quite a quarter down the page.
Examples, correct. Okay, if true,
Yeah.
print.
Yep, so all we're checking for is just this play button, click execute cell, and we just want to make sure that it runs.
Okay, hold on. Can you show me that play button again?
It's right to the left. It tends to auto hide, so you might have to move your cursor, your pointer around a little bit to see if it's there.
Okay.
Or to find it. I don't believe. Yeah, these are different options.
This is indented correctly. This is still part of the same code block.
Yes.
And then it says, okay, that's it?
Yep, that's it. Is there anybody else that doesn't have their Python environment set up? Okay. What we'll do, we'll put our page right back at the beginning of the Python syntax basics. What we could do is we could take a short break and take about a 10-minute break. It is 6:43 Central Time, so we'll be back at about 7:43, 7:45-ish. And I'll pause the recording and I'll see you then. All right, welcome back, everybody. Now, there's one more piece of setup. It's not, this is more optional, but I recommend as you're going through any kind of programming class to code along with the instructor or with the examples. I know a lot of this code is inside these code blocks for Jupyter notebooks, but actually typing the stuff out tends to help solidify it in your mind a lot better. So what you'll do is over here in the Explorer tab, you'll see this new file icon. It's a little bit tricky because it will hide itself. So as you put your mouse pointer up near this corner in this window, you'll see this new file. When you click that, it'll have this open dialog box to be able to type the file name. The easiest way is just do practice.py. We use .py because py generally is it's the rule of thumb for Python files. So this just helps us quickly understand what we're dealing with as a Python file. Now, the way this is going to work, it's a little bit different than what we have here. But what we can do is we could take this code from this first code block. We could right click and copy it or Control C. You could hop over to your practice, paste it in there, and you have a play button right here. When you run that, you'll see your output down here. I just copied and pasted just to be able to do this really quickly so you guys can see what's going on here. And that helps with being able, I highly recommend coding along with this stuff. Now, it could be a pain bouncing back and forth between the tabs. So the next piece is you could take this tab and drag it over to the right. You see how this is giving me a two-tone window here? I'm holding down on the cursor on the left mouse click, and I'm dragging the tab over. And when I let go of it, you'll see I have a side-by-side window. That work for everybody?
Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, but mine will be coming after.
Okay.
I don't have a practice folder. Excuse me, I don't have a practice folder.
Oh, just okay. So.
Oh, we make one. Okay.
Yep. Go ahead and make the file. Not the
missed that
folder,
part.
but a file. Yep, no worries. It does, that little icon can hide on you, so you might have to poke around to see it. It does get a little bit annoying on that.
All right.
All good?
Well, I can't see because my cursor is too big. I think that was it.
Okay, so yeah, you might be able to try to come in from it's weird. I don't like the way.
Okay, there's a folder. Okay, I see now. I see. The first
Yeah, you should see the new file there. I don't believe.
I got it out there.
Okay, yeah, the right click functionality is just kind of a bit wonky on here. So, but once you have that practice PY file up, did you see how to drag it over and create the side panel?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good.
Oh no, I only give you one view.
Yep, you could grab so this is probably what yours looks like, is it's all one view.
Yeah.
You can just grab the tab,
and
hold down left click, and you'll see the gray.
Left click. What left click?
Left click on your mouse.
Oh, left click. You mean the main click?
It's 8 o'clock.
I got it. It's okay.
Okay.
There we go. It's a little tricky when you move around. There you go. Got it.
Good to go. All right. And then you don't have to keep any of the stuff there. That's a good way to just be able to type code, and you can actually play around with the syntax and code as we're going through stuff. Okay. I just took whatever I copied in there and deleted it out of there. For running code inside that block, you'll have this little play button right here. And your output will come down here in the terminal window itself. Any questions there?
Yeah. Did you say the Python is already downloaded, or we have to download it or something?
No, Python's already running inside this code spaces. So where you created that file is in the virtual computer. So
Yeah.
you could easily just do, yeah.
No, I see two windows. That's why. Print hello. Oh,
And then I can just run that. And here it is.
yeah.
Because we've already set up Python in this environment, this practice.py file will work when we're working through examples and stuff like that. Is that helpful?
Yes.
All right. All right. Are there any questions on trying to get this practice PY file up? This is an optional thing, but I highly recommend it to just get more hands-on coding. Watching videos, reading books, it doesn't really help until you actually start putting code into an editor and actually trying to run stuff. You honestly learn by breaking stuff. You learn by running into mistakes and stuff like that. That's the way I've been learning. I've been doing at this for a little while now. All right, so I'm going to move the practice over so that we can see this. Everybody can see this pretty well.
Yes.
Maximize out the view
Yes.
screen. All right, so the first thing we're going to go through is Python syntax. And syntax, we're already familiar with syntax, but maybe not in this manner. Syntax is just like your proper grammar for when you're talking about like the English language, Spanish. It doesn't really matter what language it is. There's a certain format where words have to be put to make any sense out of something. If you just take a sentence in English and mix the words all up, it's not going to make sense and people aren't going to understand what you're saying. So it works the same exact way when you're programming computers. Like what I was talking about, well, like what I did here with this print statement, and just the way that I've gone through and put these different characters and stuff and how these are highlighted kind of hints towards what this syntax is. Print is a function. The quotes are data or a data type called string. We're going to get into that stuff today. But if I just go through and just say print my words, and if I try to run that, we get all kinds of problems here. Python's not happy. Okay. So
What's the rule? What's the rule? You got parentheses?
well, that's for this function, for this print function, and we're going to go into that right now. Okay. We're going to take the syntax stuff bit by bit. But if you notice, when I type that out, you see these red squiggly lines. The editor's already telling me that there's a problem
That's wrong.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right. The color gives you an indication what's going on.
yep. And if I take this, well, pay attention to the word print here. And you notice how when it doesn't have enough characters, it's got a squiggly, but as soon as I finish the word, it's highlighted in purple. So Python knows what that does. Okay.
Okay.
And
It's
another
autofill.
indication is you see how that I just put the cursor right over top, took the mouse cursor and just hover over it.
Yep.
And it gave me a pop-up. It gives me a tooltip. It's telling me what this function does.
Is that AI or is that like the computer?
No, this functionality has existed for more than 20 years. This is not AI. This is the editor itself.
I have to
Okay.
think somehow, right? Okay.
Yep. Trust me, it's handy when you forget how something works. All right. So syntax is important because one, it allows us to read our code, and the Python interpreter needs to know what's going on. When we run this stuff, it's going through what's called the Python interpreter, and it executes our code line by line. But also, just like we saw here, it prevents runtime errors. And this particular runtime error, when I just typed the words in and didn't give it any of the proper formatting, is called a syntax error. And it has this little error message down here, missing parentheses in call print, etc. Any questions there? Now, I know when we were looking at the examples, we saw some people may have clicked the other code cell and they saw something called an indentation error. Well, Python has rules around indentation that signify what's called code blocks. So what we're talking about is this if true statement right here. You see how this is all indented and it runs fine. I can click run on here and we get the code. We can copy, we can paste it over here, we can run it, and we get the same result. But if the indentation is off, now this indentation is all lined up in a row here. That's the key piece right here. So these two print statements belong to this if block. Okay, and we'll get into what the if block means later. But if we check this second piece and we have this odd indentation here, where these aren't in line. So with this first indent, this one is not highlighted. This one doesn't have any like squigglies or anything like that, because the first indentation in this block, even though it's 2 tabs in, Python expects everything else to be 2 tabs in if it's inside this block. But because this one is 1 tab back, but not all the way in line with the if statement, I'm going to take and copy this, put it over, well, actually here, so now we have the same error here. And if I run it, we have the indentation error. If I delete the space here, so I took that indent out, that is okay. Or if I line it up with the other print statement, that is okay. But because this is staggered, this is not okay. And if I do the opposite, you see how that's not okay. This will still give an indentation error.
How do you set it up? That was leading into my question.
Okay.
How do you set it up to where you can see the ... like you have in front in the indentation in that first box? And in the
this right
box?
here? Okay,
Yeah.
So this piece right here that you're seeing, that is Jupyter Notebooks. Okay. So this is just a feature of how Jupyter Notebooks displays this stuff. If you see it, if you notice you don't see it over here,
Right.
This is the way you're normally going to be dealing with code. I believe if you go through editor settings, you could probably find it, but pretty much it's a cosmetic piece. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I was just wondering because
no worries.
You see a lot of code. You see it go down to the, towards the right, then come back to the left, and then got multiple spaces in between. So I didn't know if people just automatically know, excuse me, that they can indent 4 spaces over, 3 spaces over, 10
Okay,
spaces.
so the amount of spaces, here's what I'm going to show you right here. The amount of spaces doesn't matter as long as it's the same. So I'm hitting spacebar here, and I'm just hitting spacebar twice.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the squigglies are gone because they're lined up. If I put them at 1 space, that's still good. However, 1 space is pretty difficult to see. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Typically, the easiest route to do is just use the tab key. Now, it's outside of the scope of what we're going to be talking about, but you can configure inside VS Code, you can configure the tab key to how many spaces it's going to be, whether you want it 4, 3, 6, or whatever.
Okay.
However, that's outside of the scope here. And quite honestly, if we do a whole bunch of configuration to this VS Code, when the code spaces is done, all that configuration goes in there. So it's kind of like the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right?
So if I'm comfortable with it, I can put it on my own VS Code. But
Yes,
right
you would
here,
want to do that in your own VS Code. Yes.
got it.
But
Thank
just
you.
make sure you're not doing something like, even though it accepts this single space,
Yeah.
it starts getting hard to read. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yep, not a problem. So that is indentation, and Python is very particular about its indentation. If you notice, the amount of white space or blank lines I have here doesn't really matter, because Python ignores that, but it does not ignore these initial tabs. You see, this if true with the colon signifies the beginning of a code block, but because I don't have indentation here, it has a problem. So if I run this, it will give you this error right here where indentation error expected an indented block after the if statement. So Python is pretty good about telling you what is going on. Most of these errors are pretty, once you get used to them, they're pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy to understand. Any questions there? Okay, so the next piece, this is still syntax, is comments. So we'll go with the print hello world example. Now, print is the method that we use to get output to the screen. Now, if this terminal window starts getting really cluttered up for you, you could type out clear, and that will clear out that'll clear the junk out of your current view of the terminal window. So then you can continue running things. So if I run this, we have the hello world printed out here. And as you can see, like we were talking about, the print shows up. It's highlighted in purple, means Python knows it as a keyword. We use these parentheses as part of how the function works. We'll go into the little bit more of that later. But what we're talking about is up here, this comment. If you notice, we started it with a pound sign, in a space, and then typed out our comment. I believe, yeah, you don't need the space in there, but it helps it make the comments readable. The key behind comments is that's notes for other programmers to read. That helps you with remembering what logic you were doing or what you were thinking, what you were trying to accomplish by a particular line of code. Now, comments can be on their own line, or this is an inline comment. The key about inline comments are you can't run, if you put code behind it, even though it's in proper syntax, it's not going to run. Because as soon as this pound sign for the comment starts, everything after that for that particular line is going to be ignored. Any questions? But a good indicator is even though the syntax is typed out correctly, everything's in gray here. But this is going to cause errors. If I take that comment out, you'll see everything's underlined and etc. Any questions there? You can go through, you can press the play buttons for the Jupyter notebooks. Like, as I said, it kind of helps drive it home if you're, it helps solidify the concepts if you're actually typing out the code and whatnot, especially when you start getting into the examples, the exercises, etc. So we have the pound sign for a single line comment. And then we have two different ways to do what's called a multi-line comment. You have the single apostrophe, 1, 2, 3. If you do 3 of them, you'll see in your editor that you can type these are multiple lines, and it runs until it will everything's commented out until it runs into the second set of 3. Now you see if I highlight this, it's kind of giving me a tooltip or a helper to show me where it started. And then if I go through and add some print statements, when we run it, all we get is the print statements because these are comments. So again, just like the single line comment, it's ignoring them. They are highlighted differently because this can be used in other methods. We'll cover that later. Any questions? Now, we've been using this print function. It's usually the first in just about any print or programming language, the print function or some way to get console output or output to the terminal is like one of the first things that you end up learning. The format for the print function, you have print and then 2 parentheses and the information, the stuff we're trying to print between them. For these strings or these words that we want to put out, you see it's a single quote or a single set of quotes. You can also do a single quote here. So it's the double quote or the single quote or apostrophes. It will accept both of them. Okay? So the next thing we're going to move into, are there any questions about the print statement, comments, or anything like that? I highly encourage adding comments to different pieces of code that you're working with. It kind of helps you remember what things do. And just commenting your code is a good practice. And as you get more used to things that are more obvious, like these print statements, we'll end up commenting them less. But especially when you're new, it's just a good practice to kind of comment it and give yourself an idea of what things do. So the next piece we're going to move into are variables. And variables, as it says here, variables are named location used to store data in memory. So what it is you can think of a variable as a box. And the data, whether it's a number, a string or a word, or whatever types of data types there it is, and we'll be stepping into data types. Data types is going to cover multiple days. That's pretty much the bulk of what we're going to be covering in the Intro to Coding program. But we'll take, as this example is, this data type is a string and it's Roger. So these right here are also strings. And what we see strings do is we see them output to the terminal when we're using them in our print statement. So when we use a variable, instead of just printing it to the terminal, we're going to store it in a location. And a variable gives a name to that location. And that's what we're looking at right here. You see this first one, the variable name, the syntax for declaring a variable is the name of the variable, then an equal sign, and then the value. And you'll see it's that same way. Age equals 27, name equals John, price equals $29.99, is valid equals true. It does not work the other way around. So that's another part of our rules of syntax. So if I go age equals 27, that's good. But if I go 27 equals age, this right here, even though it's not giving us an error, it should be. There we go. Even though it wasn't highlighting it, we see there's an error right here. Any questions on that?
I can't remember, but for Python, when you create a variable, can there be, I know it has to be alphabetic, but can there be numbers added to it or no?
Yes, you can use numbers in the variable name as long as it's not the first character.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we can press the play button here and we'll see this is going to, okay, we're assigning the variables here. Now, this is a combination of functions right here. We're not really going to dive too deep into this ID function, but just really quick, these are addresses where the variable is stored. Now, we don't need to worry about that. What you can think, the easiest analogy that it works with is think about this number as like a rack location inside a warehouse. And the variable is our box we're going to stick in that rack location. And only one box can be in each location. As you see, these are huge numbers, and it breaks down to looking up things inside of memory, which is out of the scope of what we're going to do. But that does come in understanding that variable is stored in this box. So this 27 is in this box, or John is in the name, and name is stored in this location in memory. So it's in that place in the memory warehouse. This is talking about this 27 being an integer, John being a string. It has this thing called float that's 27 or 29.99, and then this boolean. I believe, yes, we're going to get into those just down a little bit, so I won't get ahead of myself and explain those just yet. But these are data types. And as you were bringing up, we have our rules for naming variables in Python. It must begin with a letter or an underscore. I believe everybody knows what an underscore is. It's that little underline. That little underline. The little leading underline, you can use it for a space, which leads into the next piece. We cannot have spaces in variable names. So it has to be one connected string of characters. And it cannot have special characters. So you can't do things like putting any of these other special characters in here. So just try to stay away from special characters for variable names. Now, case sensitivity also matters. So my variable and my even though these are both equal to 0, they are not the same variable because this is in all capitals and this is in lowercase. Or even if I take and change the case, all three of these are different variables. So always make sure your case is the same when you're using your variable, or you'll be creating a new variable or referencing one that doesn't exist. Don't use Python keywords, and we'll notice those like using if, we got print, we've got for. You see how these are already coming up with, they're already coming up highlighted in a different, they're color coded. So that means they're reserved words that we cannot use for variable names. And excuse me. This is more of a convention, but it's across Python that they use what's called snake case. And that's what I was already starting to use that. Here, it's where you're typing your variable name out in lowercase and separating it with underscores for spaces. Any questions there? That's effectively everything that we're talking about for naming variables. Now, variables, there's a constant is a type of variable, and even though Python does not enforce keeping a constant or not changing, it's understood that you should not change this variable. So when I typed out that one, when I type out my number in all capitals, it kind of highlighted it, and if I put my mouse cursor over it, it shows constant. It's a convention to use all capitals for a constant. So what is a constant? It's going to be stuff like our examples here, a representation of pi. We have Earth's gravity, or like for a password checker or something like that, we have max retries. When they're set as a constant, we don't want other programmers changing them. But you do have to keep in mind that Python does not prevent you from changing it. So this is more like a convention, best their best practices and stuff. Okay. So if we run this here, we'll just see this just outputs our different variables. So that goes to show that's another way we can use print, is even though our variables, instead of just printing just a straight text, we can also print our variable. And this is one of the reasons why the print statement is one of the first that we learn, is because that's a good way to check and see what your variables are, what your code is doing, and that sort of thing. So I always recommend using, when you're building out code, to definitely use print statements to double check and make sure your code is doing what you think it is. Any questions now? Any questions over variables, constants, etc.? One of the things when I was talking about with changing it is we could always, I've had this, I first set this variable to 5 and then I changed it to 6. And then you see down here, we Okay, any questions before we move into data types?
Is there a way to ensure that you don't accidentally override a previous variable for like longer code?
Actually, there really isn't. Python is a dynamically typed language, so it doesn't have anything built in to protect the variables. So that's where,
Mm,
like, that's where if you don't want something overwritten, you you use the pattern of typing it out in all caps to kind of
mhm.
signify that it is something that shouldn't be changed. It's a constant. Because I believe
Okay.
if I want to go here and I start typing out, you see how I start typing out my number? And here it is in
Hmm.
this tooltip. So it kind of helps me out when I'm working with that kind of, when I'm working with variables that I've already created. And a lot of times, it's more to signify to other programmers. So if a programmer gets your code, another programmer gets your code and they want to modify things, they obviously should, well, they should understand that this is a constant and you don't want it changed. If they need to change it, then that's generally something that they should like talk to the original author to find out what happens when they change that variable, because there could be other things inside the program. Like you said, it could be a long program, and that could really mess up the logic and make it do things that are just not fun. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, not a problem. So we talked a little bit about data types, but we didn't really dive into what that really means. So we have 5 data types here. These are the common data types that we're going to be using throughout this course. And with these, you could do pretty much most anything you really need to do in programming in Python with these. So the first data type is a Boolean type, and it can only have the value true or false. Now, if we look at this, when we go true, this is capitalized versus if we do you see how this is automatically changing it? There we go. Kind of have to force it to take it the way. The true and false must be capitalized here for Python to understand it. For these, when they're not capitalized, Python thinks we're declaring a variable. Just as a side note, these would be very, very bad variables to use because the they resemble the actual data types true and false. And with a variable, you shouldn't try to assume what the value is by putting it in the name. It should be something more like status or complete. Is complete equals false. That's more of a better habit when you're dealing with booleans and stuff. It's kind of it is a yes, no, true, false, on, off style of status. And what this piece is talking about for the display, if we go print type clear, printing the type will tell us our variable's data type. And we see this class bool where bool is short for boolean. And again, type is another type of function that's going to do something. And in this particular case, we're looking for what the type of false is, or if I put is complete and we run it, we still get bool. But if I enter in a string in here, we will get class str, which is our string. So we have integers, which are whole numbers. And if I enter in the type, I'll put in the number 12, and we get class int. Int for short for integer, and that is all whole numbers. And we saw the other numbers that had decimals in them, and those are our floats. So if I take 12 and I add 0.5, we see that we have changed it from int to a float. Any questions there? The string, now I've been using mostly words or all letters, but strings can have most characters in them. There are some exceptions, but this is still a string. And if and it outputs the string just as I typed it in there. So a string is a sequence of characters. It's not necessarily just letters, but it can have numbers in it. However, this 5 is not the same as an integer 5. And we'll go into that in a little bit. And then the last type is nothing or non-existent, which is a none type for Python. And I don't believe we'll run into very good examples of how that's used. It's generally a lack of a value. It doesn't mean zero. It means that there's absolutely nothing in that box. We'll probably see some of that later in the course, but understanding that that is a data type is just what we're aiming for right now. We'll see, this is what I was just talking about. This print 1 plus, and then we have the quotes, that's the string. Where I was saying that they're not the same, it says that we cannot add an int in a string. So even though we understand that this is a 3, this is a string 3, it does not actually have the value of the integer 3. But if we just type our regular 1 plus 3, we'll get our 4. Everybody see that? Any questions there? So the reason why we need to understand that the number and then the string, how they're different, is to understand why we need casting. So you can take types and cast them as a different type as long as Python knows how to translate that. And this first example here, this print 1 plus the casting the string 3 as an integer, you'll see the 4 there, which it turns it into the same thing as what we've got here. We've already gone through printing out our type of float, our float type. We typed the number directly in there, but this is just using it as a variable. Now this one this next one works a little bit differently because we're taking the string 3 and we're trying to cast it into a float. Now, does anybody know why this did 4.0 instead of 4? So I'm going to,
Float is a decimal.
yes. So when Python is adding and it has one float in here, we have, if we go 1 plus 3.0, and we'll see, is when we cast this float is 3, it's turning it into 3.0, which just as you said, it has a decimal. And if one of the numbers has a decimal, Python will automatically change this over from 1 to 1.0. And that's why we get the 4.0. So that way you understand that if you're adding an integer and a float, you'll always get a float as the result. Any questions there? Now, does anybody know what this next one is going to do?
I don't think it's gonna work because there's the quotes around the 3 and or actually that one's fine, but the 1 doesn't have quotes and it's a string.
Okay, so this right here, that str, we're typecasting that 1 into a string. So what that does, I'm going to show the equivalent. Let me comment these lines out. What the interpreter is going to do is it's going to see it like this. Okay. That part of the syntax is correct right here, this string right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's exactly what it's doing. Just like when I took that 3 from this and I typed it out as 3.0, that's what the interpreter sees. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But still, would this work? Would this do anything? Because now we have the character 1 and the character 3. Do you think that's going to work,
No,
or what do you think
no,
it's going to do?
because you need the full quotations since it's a print statement
Okay,
inside the parentheses, I'm guessing, right?
it's a good guess. I expect this. I'm walking you into something which I don't. It is where they cover this is a little bit kind of, they cover the string stuff later or
Mhm.
deeper, but the plus operator, I know you're thinking of like it's trying to add the value 1 and the value 3, right?
Yes.
Yes, which is exactly that's the information that we've covered up until now. And that's why this is kind of a trick question. There's another function of this plus operator is called concatenation. And as long as they're both strings, instead of giving 4, we get 1 and then 3 put together as one string.
Oh yeah, I
It
remember
it is kind
this
of
a long
tricky.
time ago.
It's kind of tricky, and it's usually put in there as like a type of a trick question because we just covered you can't add characters with numbers, but you can concatenate characters. So it's
Mm.
that's just like the English language. Syntax is always fun.
Yeah, I get it.
Um, Now when we're talking about typecasting, there are limitations. So this results in an error because we're trying to do 2 typecasts here. Where if this one takes a little bit to explain. If I did, I'm going to break this down. We have print if I just did 4.56, that would work is the 4, because an integer is a whole number, so it just ignores everything after the decimal point. But the problem is this is the string 4.56, and it can do the typecasting with one simple variable, but this has to be cast twice for it to actually do what they want. So the way to make this work would be, and this is getting, I know this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but this is the only way to make this particular piece work. Do you understand? Do you guys see why?
Yes.
With programming, you have to be specific. And this, it just doesn't know what to do with it. So that's where you have to tell it, okay, we need to turn this into a float first, or yeah. It does, I mean, initially it looks like it should work, but the compiler just can't figure out what, or the interpreter just can't figure out what we're trying to do. And that's the indicator here is it's looking for a base 10 or a number with no decimal point, basically. Any questions? Okay, we will dive into, okay. We'll dive into booleans after a break. It's just about 8:50. We could actually cover through booleans and we'll go into numbers after the break. So as I was saying, we've kind of actually touched on booleans already, with it being true or false. Now I know they have this if and else stuff here, and that's a bit of logic that we're going to be dealing with on Wednesday. So we won't really touch the if else stuff, but this is running a decision piece where we've set our current temperature variable to 67, and then we want to check if the current temperature is less than 68. We want to set our heater on to true, or we'll set our heater on to false, and then we're just printing our heater on, which, because 67 is less than 68, that is true. So yeah, Booleans are it's just two values, true or false, or on or off, yes or no. It's used for simple comparisons like that, and we'll go into that. Will make a little bit more sense when we go into this stuff on Wednesday, describing the structure of these if statements and how that whole thing works. But the key is just remembering it's a true or a false, and remember it's capitalized T, capitalized F for true and false. Any questions there? All right, so we'll take a break, and I will see everyone back at 8 p.m. Central. I'm in Eastern time, so it's almost 9 o'clock. So, yeah, so about a 10-minute break. 11-minute break, and we'll see everybody at 8 p.m. Central. All right. All right, welcome back. We were just covering Boolean types of, as I was saying, true, false, on, off, 1, 0. Our next type is our number types. We've already talked about our integers, which are our whole numbers, and our floats, which are our any number with a decimal in it, even if it's a 0.0. And we already kind of covered this example of taking an integer and adding a float to it, and we will always get a float on the end. With numbers, we have a few different mathematical operators. We have our exponent, and that's done a little bit differently than what you're probably used to. And we use a double asterisk to be able to signify that we want an exponent. So if we print, we'll say 2 to the power of 2, or 2 squared, we can clear, and we'll see we get 4 there. Now, multiplication doesn't use the X or a dot for that symbol, that we use a single asterisk. So again, we can go print 2 times 3, and then we'll get our 6 here. Division is done with a single slash, and you have these for reference right over here. So we can print 2 divided by 1, and we'll get our 2. Now, when we do division, we'll notice that always returns a float. That will always give us a float back, even if the number is whole. So 2 divided by 1 we know is 2, but it will always give us a float. That's just the nature of Python. Now, we also have floor division, which it rounds down to the nearest whole number. So if we go try to, oh, no, I'm using, let me, 3, floor, 2. I'm getting all kinds of random characters. So now, that's the example that we're looking for. Floor division gives us, we're taking 3, dividing it by 2, and rounding down. So we're not getting a decimal. Is that clear? It's useful in pieces here and there when we don't want the remainder. We'll definitely be we'll be going through examples of that later. Probably later throughout the course, when we're working on more of the mini project style of stuff, where we start going into some of the practical execution of some of these things. But there are examples and there are exercises to be able to work with these things. Now, modulus returns only the remainder of our number of what we're looking for. So there we go. So 23 modulo 2. 2 does not evenly go into 23, but we have a remainder of 1. So it's 11 remainder 1. And all modulus does is it gives us the remainder. This is this is the most common method for determining if something is actually an even number or not. It's easily if it's 23 modulo 2 is 1. If it's 22 modulo 2, we have 0 for the remainder. So it's very easy to be able to come up with, for us to be able to figure out if we have an even number or not. The same goes for if we have something evenly divisible by 10. And that's all we're really focusing on here, is it's evenly divisible. If it's evenly divisible, it'll have a return of 0. Any questions there? Naturally, we've dealt with addition and subtraction before. We were covering addition earlier. Those follow the same mathematical rules as what we're used to. And if for a refresher, if anybody's a little bit rusty, we follow the order of operations, or PEMDAS, which is parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. Well, addition and subtraction. So we have kind of an example here where we've added in parentheses to the first one to make sure the 1 and 70 are added first. So we take 71 and then follow through with the rest of our equation, versus the difference when we take the parentheses out. So the difference is right around a whole number, but it can change things for your calculations if you forget those. That's kind of more of a reminder for math. Here's our floor division. You can go through and see these and play with the numbers and see what they get. Any questions on the mathematical operators? Okay, so the main data type we're going to really dive deep into here is the string type. We've covered some basics over the rest of the data types, and a lot of times those start making more and more sense as we go through and we use them. But a string, this is talking about string literals or immutable sequence of characters like we were talking about. This is a string right here. So we have our Python inside our quotes. Now, each one of these has an index location. Now, if you remember what I was talking about early on at the beginning of class, in programming, we start at 0. So we can see that we're starting at 0 here. Let me move that so that you can see the P. So what we have here is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 elements, but our n is in index location 5 because we start at index location 0. And that's kind of a core piece that we need, a core piece to understanding about indexing, especially when we're talking about our sequence of characters. Any questions there? So when we start diving into it, that's what this code block here is representing. If we hit play, you'll see it says my string, and then we have these square brackets and a number. What we're doing is we're referencing that index location. So we have, now don't pay attention to this. This is not what we're looking at. The string we're looking at is right here. This says this is my basic string. So it's looking for the 0 element, which is the T, which it's printed out right here. And then as we go 1, that's the H, I is 2, S is 3. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, the 4, index number 4, is a space, and you don't really see that here. But if I go and add print my string and access the 5th element, and then I run it, you see how I get this empty line is that space. Any questions there? Then we can access any position inside our string by using this indexing notation. So one thing we need to understand is a string is immutable. That means that we cannot actually change the string. And what I mean by that is the box that the string is being held into, that string stays the same. But you'll see, okay, we're going to run through this code block where we have this is my string, and we're going to try to change this -1 index is briefly talked about right here, where we can use negative numbers to also access our elements. The -1 is always the last position. So it's 5 and -1. So if we if we had a string, we didn't know how many characters there were, and we wanted the last element, we could use that with the -1. So this example, what it's trying to do is it's trying to take this period, and change it to an exclamation point. But strings are immutable, and you cannot do that. You cannot change that. However, it looks like if I took my string, put it over here, and then I'm going to add some print statements in here. This looks like I changed the string, but what actually happened is I created a new string. There's a difference there. So if I mess up and don't type one of my, if I mess up and don't type one of my characters, it's not going to just instantly put it there. This is a new string, even though we're using the same variable name. Behind the scenes, this old string is still in that memory warehouse somewhere. It's just not, we can't access it this way anymore once we change this. This puts this string in a different box in a different rack location. Now, again, I do understand that that can be a little bit complicated. The key to understand is we cannot just we can't just use our indexes and change a character. We have to rebuild the whole string. Any questions there? Okay. And this effectively is going through and just explaining exactly what I was talking about. So the key is understanding that we're redefining the string to change what it is. As a matter of fact, we can do print ID, my string, and we'll print the ID again. I believe this should. So if we run that, okay, so this, if you look here, those are the locations in memory. It's changed it as soon as we changed the string. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Is it didn't, the string is there still, there's still there somewhere. It's just waiting for the garbage collector to basically toss it out. So one thing we can do inside our string is we can slice them. Now, what that means is we can grab a piece of our string. So what I'm going to do is we have our first line printing our change string here, and then we take this syntax that we've put inside these square brackets, and right here is what's explaining what each piece is. We have our start, which is 11, our stop, which is 18, and then there's this step. We haven't added a step here, so what it does is it defaults to 1, or each character. So it finds what this second line is doing is it's going to find index 11, which starts at the C for changed, and go all the way up to index 18, which is the full word changed. And this is how we could grab a piece of our string. Any questions there? With the step, if we decided to change that to 2, it takes every other letter from that small section that we wanted. Oh.
So the third one's the pattern, basically.
Yes, yeah. If you wanted, yeah, it's if there's a specific order that you're looking for, then you would specify it there. I don't use it that often, so it's kind of like one of those niche cases when knowing that it's a thing and then seeing this and then basically seeing the spot. This right here, I'll cover this reversing strings, but that is the most common place that I've seen using the third the step. So if we don't put in the start, it's going to start at 0. And this one's negative indexing. If we don't put in the end, it will go all the way to the end of the string. And then with this, we put in nothing for the beginning, nothing for the start, nothing for the end, but the step is -1. What that does is that reverses the string. That's most of the usage that I've seen of that last step. Does that help?
Yeah, what's like a real life example where you would want to reverse a string?
Usually programming problems. I really haven't needed to,
Okay.
unless it's like a numerical sequence of some sort. I don't run into a lot of reversing strings. I don't run into a lot of stuff where I really need to reverse a string. Um, but it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's available if needed.
It's knowing that you can. I think
Mhm.
that's a lot of the core premise behind less memorization and just knowing that, down the road, if you're running into if there's a particular, usually this one's used in programming problems, but if you run into something like that, like, hey, I know there's a quick way to do this because there's another way to do this, but it's long and complicated. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I believe you could even, not that, yeah, you could change your interval of how many characters you're getting. It's neat, but I don't know the practical use for that particular piece. I If I remember a practical use of reversing strings other than programming problems, I'll try to remember for Wednesday.
Sounds good.
All right. Now, strings have a bunch of methods. Now, I'm not going to expect you to memorize every one of these, but knowing that they're a thing, just like with the slicing and the reversing the strings, is going to be pretty important. So we have the string dot upper, which changes everything to uppercase. String dot lower, pretty self-explanatory. We have string dot capitalize, which this will only capitalize the first letter in the string, and then there is a string.title. Now, I'm saying string. Under what I understand, but when I'm saying string, the string that I'm talking about for this example is text. So it's text.title that gets this to produce the capitalized Python programming. Any questions there? So just substitute that when I'm saying string dot, it's whatever your string variable name is. And then you can call this method from that to be able to get the functionality that you're looking for. Any questions so far? And naturally, your string methods are going to be dealing with some form of character manipulation. Now, when they're doing this, let's see here. I'm going to take this title case and we're going to play with it over here on the side, because remember, we were talking about the string is immutable. So let's demonstrate that. We're going to take this variable out. We're going to print text.title. And then we're going to print text again. So when we run this, if you notice, this only changed the output of line 2, the text.title. But when we called text again, it is still the same variable. Does that help clarify things for people?
Yes.
So we're not actually changing it, we're changing the output. The method that they're using here is using a variable to track that. That's not always necessary, because if you don't need to reuse it, you could easily just call it, make it pretty, and go. Dot strip, you have lots of this extra space in here, and what dot strip does is it removes all of the preceding and following white space. I can highlight this so that shows you that there are characters, there's space characters, they're white space characters, but they're still characters and they're still part of that string. But if we're looking here, I can't get any of it because the strip method has removed them from it. And we have starts with, this falls back into those Boolean expressions that we were talking about. So we have our text says hello world, and we're checking to see if it starts with hello. And that's just dot starts with. It's kind of it is a literal search. So if I change this to a lowercase h, this ends out with false, because lowercase h hello and capital hello are two different strings. So it's literally what you put inside the block here. And ends with does the same thing, except with the end of the word. So we have this find method as well, where instead of outputting our word or a true or a false, we're getting a number here. And what this number is this is the index of the first location it finds whatever we're searching. So we're put in the string is to be able to search for, and the interpreter goes through and it stops as soon as it finds this first is, and we get 7. It doesn't know, nor does it care, that there's a second is in here, Because that's all the function does is it finds the first instance. Now, if this result's wrong, if it is not in there, it will return, sorry, a -1. The -1 is our false. So the one thing we can do is we can search. This is probably better to see if something is not in a bit of text. But this again, it's literal. So if we're looking for a capital I is, we're not going to find it. These are pretty basic string manipulation things. There are more advanced ways to be able to do more types of searching and that sort of thing. But that's out of the scope of what we're doing today. We have count. Count will tell us how many times a particular non-overlapping occurrence of a substring. A substring is just a part of a string. So we'll see. So when we run this, I was trying to think of a more complicated example, but that's a little bit out of scope. We're counting how many times Python appears with capital P in here. If we change it, it's literal. So it's 0 if we lowercase the P. And 2 if we capitalize. A lot of times you could start combining things. So like if we wanted to, we could take our Python text here and we could go and we could actually chain this. And I'm just going to have some fun here. But if we go through and we if we're not worried about case, we could always go lower and chain our count method to our lower method. And now we get 6 because now what it does is it takes the whole thing, turns it all to lowercase, and then it looks for lowercase Python. That's where I see it more practically used when you're looking for something like this. Just to make it so if they're looking for just the word Python, it doesn't matter if it's capitalized or not. We can change the T, put it in all caps. And run it, and we still have 6. But that being said, just about, I think all of them, or if not most of them, can be used this way. So you could use this and, well, that's the find. You could do some case insensitive stuff by chaining in the lower or chaining in the upper, depending on what you were looking for. Any questions there? We also have string replace. Now this one is kind of handy when we're dealing with phone numbers and dates and stuff. As you see, we start the date string out with slashes between our date, our month, day, and year. And then we use this replace syntax, which it takes 2 arguments. Our first one is the character we're looking for, and the second one is the character we want to replace it with. So that's being assigned to the formatted date here. And as you see, this is the output where all we've done is just change the characters. Any questions so far? Okay, and then split. Split is breaking apart a string based on a single character. Now, this is a different data type. We're not covering it today, but we'll understand that this is a list. And what this is doing when we run this, we're taking this single string, we're locating this slash or our date separator, and we're breaking it into however many strings that turns into. In this case, it turns into 3 strings. This is a list of 3 strings. So when we print it, you see the print split date, we have 3 different strings sitting inside this list. Now, I understand we don't know how to use lists yet, but that's something that we will cover on day 3, which is Thursday. Now, this example, the opposite of split is join. And what we're doing with join is we're taking a list of strings and we're joining them off of a particular character. In this instance, they're using a space, but if we go through and change it, we could add that dash in there, and now we have our dashes just like the replace worked, just like the replace did. And what it does, this behind the scenes, it goes through each one of these and adds this character between it, and now we're assigning it to a new string. So we have this merge date here. Any questions there? Now we have some more methods. There are quite a bit of methods to strings, which I don't expect people to memorize them all. Just understanding that they are a thing and knowing that you can come back and reference this day 1 lesson, because we will use some of these things down through some of the other days. We'll actually reference some of these other pieces, like maybe splitting this list out, and then when we're covering lists on a different day, we'll go through and do something with that. Now we have conditional methods, and those are Boolean. So this dot is alpha is just checking to see if the characters are alphabetic. If all the characters are alphabetic. So if I take and I put a number in there and run that, now it's false. I put a 1 right here. Let's take the 1 back out. When we run it and we're true. We have is numeric to see if everything in here is a number. Again, that returns true or false. If we add a character or letter in there, we'll get false. So, and then we have the combination of the two, which is al_num. So it's checking if it's alphanumeric, whether letters, digits, or both. Any questions so far? I know I'm moving through these a little bit quick. A lot of these you're gonna actually put your fingers on. You go through the exercises and start kind of understanding what they do. And all of this is in here for reference. The big point, one of the major points with programming isn't memorizing all these things. It's knowing that it's a thing and knowing where to go to look the stuff up. This is one good resource. Our curriculum's one good resource. You could easily go through, and there's W3 Schools Python, which that's a Python tutorial, but there's a lot of stuff that you can dig into And here's a whole section on syntax. We're basically covering a lot of this stuff. Okay. There is the Python. I will paste those in here. There we go. And this is the official Python docs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste those in here into the Zoom chat. And they can go through and go into more detail. There's more methods than what we're touching in here. So that's why I said, rather than trying to memorize every single one of these, if you tried to memorize everything, your head would explode. But knowing that there are string methods that you can do, and then the places to look up to see what you can do is more important. We have our is lower to see if our text is lowercase. We have our is upper, same thing for uppercase. And now this is probably one of the things I use with strings the most. They're interpolated strings. This kind of takes that idea with we're concatenating strings, but I like how this works better. It looks more, you could easily do, I'm going to take these pieces. You could easily use string concatenation and do it this way. This will come out with the same answer, but there's a lot going on here. Whereas with an interpolated string, or they call them F, they're all in Python, they're also called F strings because it starts with this F for the formatting. And the variable names that we're using to concatenate here, so first name, in here, it's inside a set of braces, curly braces. And the same thing for last name. One of the things I like is instead of having all of this extra space and characters where you actually have to add the space in here, because if I don't do that, then we lose the space between Jimmy and Fallon. For me, interpolated strings just look cleaner, and it helps make it so it's more easier to read your code. And a lot of times, the majority of your time will be spent reading code rather than programming it in most cases, after you're done learning the basics and everything. But even so, you'll be reviewing your own code. Here's another piece. Oh, any questions on interpolated strings before I step into the last couple pieces? Okay. We also have there's a lot more than this for escape sequences, but these are some of the most common ones. We have the /n, which is a new line, /t for tabs, and then to be able to put quotes inside of our strings, well, especially when we're already using quotes, we have to use this slash for an escape character. Now I'm going to press play on that, and we can see the results here. There's the multi-line string with the quotes inside it, the new lines spread throughout that string, and then you see the tab characters. There's a tab, and then this follows the tab spot, so that doesn't just put in 5 spaces, it hits the next tab stop. Kind of thinking in old typewriter methods, if people know that, or word processing documents. Here we go over a bit of the none type, like we were talking about. There is no data here. That's what the none type is all about. So none does not equal an empty list. It doesn't equal an empty string, and it doesn't equal a zero. It's literally just a none. It's usually to check. There's there in most of the context of what we're dealing with, usually we aren't really going to use that type a lot. And then again, if I find a good example, Wednesday or Thursday, I'll try to bring that up and walk through it. But it's not used heavily in the context that we're dealing with. So that's the basics on our Python data types. I realize that there was a lot of information there. Please feel free to review through it. Go through and use the practice PY file and try to play with the things. Take a shot at going through some of these exercises. We have a restaurant bill exercise. We have a couple exercises here. And if you want additional practice up here in your exercises or in your file browser, you'll have another lesson 1 exercises, and that goes through more of your basic syntax stuff. Some of these things are fixing some stuff, and it's just, I highly encourage you getting as much practice as you can, because I do understand that this is probably new for most people, and just getting your fingers in the code editor and playing with the syntax. And like I said, sometimes running into errors trying to figure out what's wrong. That's the best way to learn this stuff. If there's any questions, just make sure you can @message me. It's just DJ Man. Just type DJ. It looks like there's 2 of us now, but yeah. You could easily get me that way, or you can send a direct message inside Slack, and I'll get to your question as soon as possible. I have a questionnaire here. I'm going to put it in the Zoom chat. Now, I do understand that my name is not listed in the instructors list on this, so please complete this. This is a basically a check on how I've done for instruction today and whatnot. So go ahead and answer it honestly. When you look at the bottom, it will say who delivered today's lecture. I realize my name is not on there, so go ahead and put Adam Kahans and put in the overall comments that, I was the instructor instead of Adam. So that's everything for today. Are there any questions?
Besides,
Go ahead.
sorry,
No
you
worries.
said the lesson 1 exercises, and then before that, did you say, if there were other exercises that we should go over?
There's exercises at the bottom. There's anywhere between 1 and 3 exercises for each one of the lessons, and then there's additional exercises in the actual folder. So
Okay.
I get it. They're in 2 different spots, and I know that they are different exercises between them. They should have been just all put together in one spot. I do understand that. And, that's a great comment to add to the feedback form. I do want to make sure to cover this. So when you're done with the code spaces, when you close the tab, you have to keep in mind that it is not actually closed out. What you need to do, It's always best to keep the main URL open that you got to the Intro to Coding Live, because from here we'll hit the hamburger menu. We'll go back to code spaces, which is going to take us to this. I'm going to reload it. It'll take us to our list of our code spaces. I have 2 here because I just created another one today. But you'll see that even though I closed the tab, it is still active. What you want to do is you want to hit the ellipsis and you want to stop the code space, which is right here. There's a limited amount of time each month to use the code spaces, and because we're relatively early in the month, you don't want to leave these code spaces up just idling, because it'll burn the time whether you're using it or not. So once you're done, make sure you go through and stop the code space. Any questions there?
So hitting stop code space basically pauses the time limit for using it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's like 100 or 120 hours a month. And honestly, that is a lot, but it's not if you leave it open for 2 days. All right. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to end the recording.